Joining me, Henry Bolton, OBE, International Border Control Expert. Really good to talk to you once again, Henry.
Hi, David. Good to be with you.
Is this the pivotal moment where the French have woken up and said, hang on a minute, and this is also due to a change in the law, I believe, in France, that they are now saying, oh, maybe we should stop people coming over?
Yeah, I don't want to rain on people's parade, but this has been slightly exaggerated, what the French Interior Minister has said. It's positive. It is positive because he has, as you've quite rightly indicated, sort of opened the door onto some thinking in Paris along the lines that, look, we need to review the way we're doing things. And he has questioned the present doctrine of not taking risk and of, as you say, escorting these dinghies up to the up to UK waters and then calling Border Force to take them on from there. So he is questioning that, but he's also pointed out two other things, David, which we must not forget in this discussion that we're having now. One is that he has said, but nonetheless, it is very difficult for the French authorities to intervene. And he's talking about the international legal context there, not least, although he didn't specifically say it, the context that France sits within, which is the context that the European Union, the European Commission, has a great deal to say about how the external borders of the European Union, including France's external borders, are managed. The other thing that we must not forget is that, or miss, is that he also said that the United Kingdom needs to do a lot more to discourage these people, most of whom are coming across here to work, which is obviously a pull factor, which I've been saying for a very, very long time. And it's probably worth saying in that context that France, as every other European, I mean, I'm talking about sort of mainland Europe, not just the European Union, every other European country has a national ID card, in part so that they can keep an eye on the access that certain categories of people have to employment, healthcare, education, and so on, and benefits. So we don't have that. And the French have long been quietly behind the scenes saying that they would like to see us have an ID card so that these people cannot work illegally, and anybody who does employ them has no excuse. So there are a number of things there that you know, this isn't France suddenly changing policy. It's France saying, okay, we need to acknowledge that there might be more that we can do, but also we need to do this in partnership with the United Kingdom, who also need to do more.
Do you want to see national ID cards in this country?
I don't have a problem with it, with a massive caveat, David. The conversation has been about digital ID cards, and this was introduced as a concept under the Blair government when the idea of an ID card was put across for consultation across government. And of course, then you had the NHS and saying, well, let's put health data on there, and the Home Office, well, let's put criminal records data on there, and DVLA saying, well, we could combine it with a driving license, and all the rest of it. And all of a sudden, the whole thing became immensely technically difficult and immensely expensive, and raised a great deal of legitimate concerns about Big Brother watching you. And if you think about it, all those databases in all those government departments and agencies would have to talk to each other. That's ridiculous. No country on the planet does that. What, for example, Austria does is they have an ID card. It's a very straightforward, basic ID card. It's different colours for different categories of people. So, for example, a top-level diplomat and ambassador will have a red one, a refugee will have a blue one, an Austrian national will have a white one, and there are various other colours. And what that does is it indicates to a police officer, a local government official, somebody working in a benefits office, somebody working in a school, healthcare people, and so police officers and so on. It tells them what the status is of this individual is, what they are permitted to gain from the state, whether it's healthcare or whether it's benefits or whatever it is, or work. And so it's very easy to control. And no employer has any excuse because did you ask for the ID card? No. Okay, well, in that case, you go to jail. and they have really hefty fines. So in that sense, with limited for that purpose, I would support it, yes.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, that Yvette Cooper has said she will tighten the law on companies using self-employed people, because, of course, companies do have to check the background of people that they employ, but when they use self-employed people, they don't have to do that. I'm thinking particularly of fast food delivery drivers. We were talking about this, I think, yesterday, where the person who turns up looks nothing like the person you were sent on the app, because clearly it isn't the same person. And, of course, they're now talking about fining those companies £60,000 per person. I'm also thinking about the plethora of barbershops that have appeared on the high street. And, of course, I don't believe everyone needs their hair cut that much.
Indeed, David. And, you know, it's very, very easy when you don't have a document that is clearly, you know, indicating to an employer, potential employer, what the status of the individual is. If you don't have such a document, it's very easy for an employer who has employed this person in the full knowledge that they have no right to work. It's very easy for that person to say, well, I did a few checks. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to check this? You know, I did due diligence. Well, it's very easy for them to avoid a prosecution.
But how easy is it to forge these ID cards in other countries?
Oh, well, there's very little of it going on. I mean, you know, of course there is a degree of it. Romania has a particular problem, and it's had a historical problem with people in officialdom who issue travel documents as well as ID documents, actually being part of the problem here, and they're issuing legitimate documents to people that shouldn't have them. But you're always going to have an element of that, David. But what we're talking about here is since 2018, 150,000 people have crossed that channel.
Yeah.
What proportion of them are actually working in car washes, barbers shops, as delivery drivers, as whatever? We just have no idea. And so we've got to get ahead of that. And indeed, there will be people out there who are employing these, I like that expression, oiks, who...
Sorry, I think I made it up, but yeah.
It's good. It's a good one, David. But there will be innocent, legitimate employers who will be employing some of these people, having thought that they've done due diligence checks, but the government is not helping them with that process.
Sure.
So I think the ID card is something that we need to have that discussion about. I am utterly opposed to the digital ID card process that we had before. Now we take the biometrics of people anyway for passports and so on. I don't have a great deal of a problem with that, because that links that document to that individual. But you know, that's as far as I would go.
And of course, it's worth remembering that the government actually did sneak out a digital ID card, didn't it, in the form of the COVID passport, because that was the ruse they used to get that through. Can I just ask you, it is fascinating. So day one, pretty much, Keir Starmer gets rid of Rwanda, and of course we see a surge in the number of people coming across this year, 6,642. Since Keir Starmer became Prime Minister, 29,000. What I think is fascinating, Yvette Cooper ramping up the rhetoric. She's now saying, well, maybe we need to look at the ECHR. Article 8, the right to family life, not before time. Also, she's now talking about offshoring and processing of illegal migrants. Isn't that rather like Rwanda?
It's very similar to Rwanda. The difference is that Rwanda was for failed asylum seekers, and what the Yvette Cooper and the Home Office are talking about now is to send people to these places to have their asylum claims processed there. So there's a slight difference. I still don't think this solves the problem, though, David. The people that, like the SDP, like Robert Jenrick and others, who are specifically saying that anyone who enters this country illegally, whether to claim asylum or for anything else, needs to be detained securely. The SDP propose putting them on ascension, which I think is a good idea, and holding them there until such time as their status and identity can be confirmed, until they can be returned, or until they, because there are certain people like Iranians, Syrians, Afghans. Very difficult to return those people to those countries if they haven't got ID cards or anything. They've destroyed their travel documents or never had them in the first place. And so until those people actually ask to go back. Now, if everybody was detained in that way, you wouldn't have to detain very many, because then the boats would stop. So that's another approach, and I think that would be far more robust and far more decisive. It would be far more effective. The problem is, as people are starting to recognise, you must deal with the Human Rights Act. Yep. You must deal with the ECHR Article 8, and I would argue that you also have to deal with the United Nations Refugee Convention. All of those documents, well, the Human Rights Act in the UK is a significant problem, because even if you leave the ECHR, the Human Rights Act is UK law and embodies within it the requirement to take consideration of ECHR decisions. So you're stuck. So you've got to deal with that as well. So but the UN Refugee Convention is out of date. Must be amended and revised, not just for our benefit but for everybody's. And going back to France, France, with a different approach from this government or the UK, could, I think, be an ally, because the French don't want these people any more than we do, and they're sitting on the North French coast. Nobody wants them there. So France needs a solution, but what we spent our time doing as a country is try and throw money at the problem, which our politicians like, because it sounds good. We're putting this money in there, and we're having a meeting, we're having a summit, we're whatever. They're not actually doing very much, and the French, I think, are fed up with that. But the French, want to work with us on it. What we've got to do is be prepared to work with the French to stop it becoming a French problem as well. At the moment, we've not had that approach. No government has had that approach yet. So we're not working together on it. We're sort of browbeating the French because that suits us politically at home. We've got to be a little bit more operationally pragmatic. I happen to know one of the former commanders of the Normandy Gendarmerie. And that's his constant frustration. You never, as Brits, work with us. You're always trying to beat us up. You never want to listen to our position. You never want to listen to our solutions. You just want to tell us how we've got to do it. And, of course, that doesn't go down well with any Frenchman, as it wouldn't the other way around.
Henry, always such a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks very much for your time this afternoon. Henry Bolton, OBE International Border Control expert.